Right, let's continue our coverage of Nigeria's elections with political analyst and scholar Nnamdi Obasi, who joins us from Abuja. Nnamdi, very good evening. Appreciate your time this evening. Let's start with the mood on the ground. 7 police officers killed in Sioux incidents. We also know that a senatorial candidate was gunned down with his aides, and sadly their bodies burnt in that vehicle. So obviously a little bit of a catastrophe, if you will.
Yeah, it's a very tense environment, not only because of the security issues, but also because of the currency crunch. As you may have heard, the country is trying to change to a new design of the national currency, and that's creating a lot of tension because it's not in enough supply. There's a serious deficiency, and that's building up tensions towards the elections. But basically speaking, it's an election that's challenged by wider insecurity than in the past. In 2011, 2015, 19, we had to contend with Boko Haram in the northeast, but now there's a more generalized type of violence, not only with bandits in the northwest, but with secessionist agitators in the northeast and the southeast, and also with kidnappings and abductions across the country. So it's a more difficult and challenging security environment.
Okay, well, let's start with the basics. Over 93 million people have registered to vote, 176,000 polling stations. I mean, that is a massive administrative challenge. Do you expect the elections to run smoothly?
Well, yes. First of all, like you said, it's a massive challenge. The Electoral Commission adjusted the figures today and said, yes, 93 million people, registered after clearing the double registrations and so on, anomalies on the register. But actually, 87 million people ended up collecting the voters' cards, which are, a requirement for voting. So we may not have up to 93 million. But then, having said that, 93 million is a significant increase from the 84 million we had in 2019. And just to give a sense of the scale, this is more than the voter population of the 14 other West African countries. So it's a huge logistical challenge. But so far, the Electoral Commission is saying they are up to the task, and there's nothing to worry about. The other worries are about the currency problem that is, hampering some preparations for the elections. And the insecurity in other parts of the country. But there's a lot of confidence in the integrity of the Electoral Commission, in its impartiality and so on, but less so in its capacity to deliver a successful election. They've done that in some other states, in some of the states where they did single elections on one state that had fallen out of the national electoral cycle. But it's a different thing trying to do this on a national scale. And we just hope it works out well.
Well, let's focus on the front runners. You've got former Lagos Governor Bola Tinubu, who's 70, ruling party former VP Atiku Abubakar, 76, and the youngest of the front runners, Peter Obi, and he's a challenger and pretty popular amongst the young people. What do the 3 candidates have to offer?
Well, the perception among a lot of the young people is that the Tinubu APC ruling party candidate and Atiku Abubakar, who has been, in the field, in the ring for a long time, belong to a generation that don't offer anything, dramatically, significantly different, from what we've seen in the past. They belong to the 2 parties that had run the country, for the past 24 years, and whom the young people see as having contributed to the country's woes. So there's a lot of young enthusiasm for Peter Obi, the younger candidate, who also, in the sense of running a cleaner government, better governance when he was a state governor, seems to embody the hopes of, the young people. So it's a race that is very difficult to predict. We don't know how it will go. I must mention that this is the first time in 20 years that President Buhari has been off the ballot himself. And so the block votes that he used to have, he has a cult following, especially in the northern part of the country. And now he's not there. So we don't know how that, constituency will be split between the various candidates. But certainly, Bola Tinubu is strong in the southwest. He has a good deal of strength in the northwest. Atiku is strong, in his own ways in various areas. He's been undercut badly by losing the southeast, which was a strongly PDP area. But Atiku, Obi is strong also with the young people and with a large percentage of population yearning for change, yearning for more qualitative governance, cleaner governance, less corruption, and so on and so forth. So it's very difficult to say how this will go. But
Nigeria is almost polarized around tribal and religious lines, is it not? Is this likely to be a factor? And who's likely to benefit from those numbers if we talk about the Christian vote or the Muslim vote?
Yes, I agree that we've had, a lot of identity influencing politics in the previous elections. But I also perceive a shifting of grounds. There is a sense that the problems now are too dear. We can't be counting on ethnic and religious and regional and kinship ties and so on. There's a feeling that we need to have more competent leadership. So I would say that the three front runners have considerable support in their home base, but I wouldn't say it's exclusive support. We're seeing more and more people, across the divide who are choosing one candidate or the other and not voting strictly along ethnic, religious, regional, or other lines. There is also increasing influence of generational perceptions, especially by the young people who now see most of the older people as part of the country's problems, and whether they belong to the same ethnic or religious groups, they just don't care. They just want a better country. They're yearning for change.
Now, when we outline the challenges that Nigeria is facing, we talk about double-digit inflation, unemployment, insecurity, and so on. Now, which candidate's manifesto speaks to addressing these challenges?
Well, all the three frontline candidates, their manifestos speak to the issues in different ways, and some would say that in some respects they are still very hazy about the process of addressing these challenges. They recognize the challenges, like you said, the economy, security, national cohesion, corruption, and so on and so forth. But in some respects, they don't provide the granular details of how to deal with this. There's a recognition that the country is in a very difficult situation, and they've offered ideas about with the economy phasing out the very expensive fuel subsidy on petroleum. I think all of them are agreed on that, but it's a question of how to do it and how to phase it out and so on and so forth. There's also an agreement on increasing production. Obi seems to be more keen on improving local production. We are too import dependent. We should do better about producing rather than consuming and so on. But there is, in a sense, you might say, nothing very dramatic about any of the candidates. Obi has a strong point about the fact that he's run a very clean government when he was the governor of Anambra State in the southeast for 2 terms, from 2006 to 2007 to 2014. Even his most bitter critics don't accuse him of corruption. So from that point of view, people think that he might run a cleaner government. But again, I wouldn't discountenance the fact that the other candidates also have very strong points in their manifestos. Question is, where do you have the resources to do some of the things? I mean, in security, for instance, all of them have talked about increasing the strength of the security services. Everybody knows the boots on ground are too few. Equipment is too few. They are not properly resourced. Then where are you going to get the money if you're going to expand the security services, as they're all saying? So there's a lot of gray areas that are not yet cleared up.
So, Nnamdi, let's talk about what do the 3 candidates, or what is a winning candidate? How many votes does he need to acquire in that election on Saturday? And when do we expect the results to be announced?
Well, first of all, the winning candidate has to meet 2 benchmarks. One, he has to have the majority of votes, the highest number of votes cast in the election. And then also because of the Nigeria's diversity, and I think this is a very good thing, he is required to have at least 25% of the votes in 24 out of the 36 states. If no candidate meets these two requirements of having the largest number of votes and 25% of the states of the votes in 24 states, then we will go for a runoff. It was more predictable a race when you had only two candidates. Now you have three, and there are questions about whether any of the three would meet those two requirements, which might then lead us into a runoff, which is why now the idea of a runoff is not off the table. It's very much being thought about. Even the Electoral Commission has said it has prepared for a runoff. It's produced electoral materials enough for the runoff. Also because the law says that the runoff must take place within 21 days of the first election. Now, 21 days from the 25th of February will be the 18th of March. And the Electoral Commission, INEC, doesn't have enough time to go back to printers, to produce materials, ballot papers, and so on. So they're all prepared for it. But I must say that the deadline for the runoff will be 18th of March.
Nnamdi Obasi, appreciate your time and wish you a peaceful election. Thank you very much for speaking to us on Africa Today. A lot more to look forward to when we return. Don't go away.